Welcome to Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater.
It's just a month away. Hi, I'm Diane Kinderwater. The big June 7th primary. Here in Issues and Answers and KCHF TV, we've invited the candidates to be our guests. Those who have accepted our invitations are going to be on our program. And we've invited the Lieutenant Governor guests, and the one who accepted and is on our show today is Peggy Mueller Aragon. You probably know her or her name. She is a member of the Albuquerque Board of Education. She's actually now the Vice President, and she's the chairman of the Audit Committee. And you may know her because she's run for that position twice, and she's won twice to be your school board member. So we're going to talk to Peggy a little bit about her experience with APS, and also you may know her because she might have taught your children. She was a kindergarten teacher for about 22 years at APS, and I think her total number of teaching is about 26 years when she retired in 2010. So there's so much more to learn about Peggy Mueller Aragon. She's got a BA and a master's in education, and she probably knows your child. So please stay with us as we meet Peggy Mueller Aragon, who is running for Lieutenant Governor. And the primary again is June 7th, just around the corner. We'll be back right after this.
The National Education Association of New Mexico, a union of teachers and school staff, believes every child deserves to learn at a school that inspires their imagination, cultivates their curiosity, and ensures a fulfilling life. Public schools should provide all our students with small class sizes and one-on-one attention. NEA New Mexico asks you to join us so together we can end the teacher and staff shortage and invest in our public education system once and for all. Sponsored by NEA New Mexico.
In addition to having her master's in education, she is a graduate of West Mesa High School. Peggy Mueller Aragon, thank you so much for being a part of the program and for running for Lieutenant Governor.
Well, thank you, Diane, for having me. I'm so excited to speak to your audience and just let them know what I'm about, what I've done, why I'm here, what's important to me.
And of course, our first basic question is, why are you running for Lieutenant Governor for the state of New Mexico, Peggy Mueller Aragon?
Well, I looked at the field, and what I saw was we needed to have somebody in there that was able to defeat an incumbent, because that's what we're going to need to do in November. We're going to have to defeat the incumbent. So I looked at my record. In 2015, I ran for school board, and there was a sitting incumbent in there who was very progressive, and my community was not very happy with where things were going as it concerned education. So I was asked to run. I had been retired about, a little over 4 years, not quite 5 years. Mm-hmm. And so I put my hat in the ring and decided to run. And the good thing is I was able to defeat her, and I won with 63% of the vote. Which is pretty impressive, right? It's difficult when you look if you look at school board members across the country, I think 90-some% of the incumbents are able to win again. And so I have a record of success. I am able to draw not just Republicans, but Democrats and independents to vote for me, because as we know, in New Mexico, it's not possible to win, especially here in Albuquerque, most especially, unless you are able to get people to really understand that you really care about all of the people, not just one group. And so I was able to do that. And then again in 2019, I had a record then, mm-hmm. right? And so I ran again and had a real target on my back, because nobody's ever confused about where I stand. I'm pretty open about what I believe and where I am. I'm always on the children's side every single time. I'm for parental rights. Parents should have a say. And so they knew that. And so they really did come after me in 2019. So I had lots of elected officials and down to a whole lot of people in Albuquerque and in the state that didn't want me to win. But still, I won with 60% of the vote, and that year I didn't lose a single precinct. And so that is the kind of candidate I believe that you need to have, somebody who knows how to win in New Mexico. And that's what I bring, as well as a lot of expertise when it comes to education. And as we know, almost 50% of our budget here in New Mexico goes to education.
So you have a record defeating a progressive.
Correct.
And you feel that's the same case that we have running for lieutenant governor in the general election.
Absolutely. We all know that that is definitely the case. We can see where this governor has stood on many issues.
What prompted you? Was it things that happened during the pandemic that urged you to run for lieutenant governor? I know as a board member, you dealt with the parents, the teachers, the students, and it was a very difficult time for all of us, the decisions that were made in Santa Fe at the governor's office. What kind of effect did that have for you to decide to run for lieutenant governor?
I mean, it really had a very big effect. When we're looking at our children were being locked out of their classrooms, so they weren't allowed to be in their classrooms. That came from Santa Fe, that came from the governor, that came from her, that did come from her Secretary of Education, so that we know that that played a very big role,
Yeah.
You know, that our schools were just closed, that they were closed for so long, and we saw the impact it was having on so many families when that governor decided what workers were essential and what workers weren't essential. So we saw lots of children that their parents were, quote, essential workers. In my opinion, everybody's job is essential. And so that would be something I would have never allowed to happen, or never allowed schools to ever be closed. They should never, ever be closed to our children, ever.
Was this, I imagine, the most difficult, obviously, it's kind of a stupid question, the most difficult time to be a board member was during the pandemic, so.
It was something new.
Bar none.
Yeah.
Bar none.
It was something that we didn't know how to deal with. We never have had to deal with it before. Trying to even figure out remote learning was a difficult thing. It's not something that we had done. So that was a hard one. That was a really hard one. We did have an E-Academy, which was just for high school kids where they learn remotely, but we didn't have anything for our youngest children. And so trying to get teachers the experience that they needed, like almost overnight, how do you teach remotely? So that was a hard one. We just never figured that one out.
Peggy, you mentioned you would have never have closed schools. That
Never.
wasn't your decision as a school board member, wasn't the parents' decision. It came from one person, the governor. What other positions would you like to share with us regarding various topics affecting New Mexico and the state?
Well,
you said people know you well, and you're very blunt about your position. So let's talk about the border.
Well, I think about our home, and this country is our home. It's our home country. So I think about who do we open the doors to when it comes to our personal home. We know who we let in. We don't just have our doors open for anybody to come in. I believe totally in legal immigration. We are a country of laws, and those laws haven't gone away. We still have immigration laws that we need to be following. And if those are not well liked across the country, well then we should be working on those, you know. But right now, our border, I just feel for a lot of people that have lost children to drugs, and we know a lot of them. I have a very good friend whose child did pass away from a drug overdose because it was laced with fentanyl. And you don't know that. Otherwise it would have never happened. And other people who are just dying because we're letting people in, and it isn't just people coming in from Mexico or from Central America. We know that a lot of those drugs are coming in from China. And so it's killing our people, and we just can't just allow that.
And the
allowing
fentanyl
them.
has just something in recent years, Peggy.
It's
that
very
is affecting,
recent.
and it's affecting our school kids.
It's affecting our school kids. Now we know that what we have to have, and we just approved this not too long, I don't know if it was maybe a month ago, where we are able to now have Narcan so that they can deliver that to children that they think may have OD'd. That was something that you didn't hear about a couple of years ago. So it's gotten out of control. It needs
As the
to.
Lieutenant Governor, what would you be able to do to affect this?
You know, the thing that I think that you could do, because immigration policy is already, it's written at the federal level. We know we have immigration policy already. So the thing that I believe you can do is let our immigration officers, let them do their job. Let them do their job. It's as simple, it really is as simple as that.
What about having our National Guard back on the border? We had them there at one point, then the current governor pulled them back.
And I'm for trying everything that we can, and that is something that we should do. It's not like one thing is going to solve every issue. You know, let our Border Patrol do what they need to do, send the National Guard there, but they are also, there's a lot of limitations about what they can do. And so those are things that need to be changed. But those two things I think would help tremendously.
You're also concerned, of course, about inflation. You see that for the school kids, their parents, making ends meet. You see it for yourself personally. You're sharing. We all tell the stories about how much it costs to fill our gas tanks, if we still have gas tanks. So inflation is affecting our families greatly. As Lieutenant Governor, how would you be able to affect that?
I mean, it's something that, Diane, that we're just, we're all feeling. And like I was sharing with you, and I did get, I think it was about a month ago, a constituent had just filled up their tank of gas. And they sent me a snapshot of their receipt. And they had two cars, so they filled up one car and it was $84, and the other one was, $90 some dollars, $92. That was for their two vehicles. And they said they just can't do it. And when we're looking at New Mexico, we are a very large state. So when you're thinking about our farmers and ranchers and how they have to drive, you're thinking about driving people that live in, like, let's say Rio Rancho, but they work in Albuquerque, and think about that round trip, about how much that costs. And they're just feeling that. They go to the grocery store and they're feeling it.
What would you be able to do as Lieutenant Governor?
I mean, as Lieutenant Governor, what I believe that you can do is, honestly, I would say right now we're talking about giving rebates to people, right? But when you're talking about a rebate, how is that really helpful to most people? It's not. When you're talking about getting $250, it costs that one family to fill up two of theirs. That is something I don't think that is going to be as helpful. What we could do is lower, our gross receipts tax. I think that would be extremely helpful. To everyday businesses, to everyday people. I think you would notice that a whole lot more. And I know they said they did that, but it was so infinitesimal that you're not going to even notice that. It has to be something much bigger than that.
And do you think the state can afford to do that at this point?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. When we're looking at oil and gas, you're looking at the oil and gas revenue and everything it's bringing into our state. You can absolutely do that. When we're looking at the previous administration, and our budget was like a $6 billion budget, and now we're at over an $8 billion budget, we have to right size that. I mean, we have to live in our means. And there is so much money coming in from oil and gas. It's an unbelievable amount. And there's a way, I know when you kind of looking at some states where they use, and I think Alaska is one, where a lot of that money that's coming from their oil and gas revenue goes back to the people. And that's something that I think with New Mexico, I think we're the second largest producer in the country. If somehow we could do that and get that back to the people, that could help.
I haven't heard that really discussed that much. I mean, of course, we all know Alaska, they receive, I think, each citizen maybe $2,000, $2,500 a year because I guess they overtax a particular industry and they give it back to the benefit of everybody. But if we're the second largest,
you would think it's something to look at, and we just have to look at things that maybe we haven't done before. And I would say, if you could say, I'm going to give you a $250 rebate, or I'm going to give you, $2,000 or $3,000. Well, what's going to be better for the
actually, what I
person?
kind of personally thought when they're giving back this rebate now in this election year, I thought, why don't they give it back to the oil and gas industry, because that's really where they tax. I mean, we're all taxed, but they were taxed. Most of the money is coming from them. So I thought, why are we receiving their taxes? Why not give it back to the oil and gas industry?
Well, they've been made out to be the bad guy when we're kind of going, are they the bad guy? I'm thinking about education, and oil and gas delivers to education like over $1 billion. Just to APS, it's over $200 and some million. Well,
let's now talk about your expertise in education. We talked about things about inflation, our concerns, the budget being so large, our taxes. You've worked as an educator for over 30 years. You have a master's in education. You're the vice president of the Albuquerque Public School Board of Education. How can we fix our system here in the state of New Mexico? Peggy Mueller Aragon, you have all the answers.
I don't know if I have all the answers, but when it comes to education, I taught in all 4 quadrants of the city. So if you know Albuquerque, the North Valley, the South Valley, the Southeast Heights, Northeast Heights, Northwest, Southwest. And so I just know what works in different neighborhoods. All our children are perfectly capable of learning at the highest levels. And so it's really believing that and having all the teachers believe they can teach any child. And that's the first and the most important thing that you say. Sometimes they would say, I grew up in zip code 87105.
Right.
And supposedly that was not a good zip code to grow up in. But I didn't have the mindset, and none of my teachers ever thought that. They believed that we could do anything, and so we did. And so I think that's the first step, is making sure that the educators don't teach down depending on where you live, or don't teach down depending on the language, what your first language may be. The second thing that I think is really important at the colleges of education, that's where it needs to start, right? You have to teach people how to do that. The second thing I think that's really important is we talk about the first teach, and people always go, what does that mean? And if you have a good first teach, you don't have to do a lot of remediation. So an example of a first teach, as a kindergarten teacher, I'm going to teach a letter. So I'm going to teach the letter M today. And if I do it today is letter M, we're going to do everything to do with letter M. If I don't have that first teach of that letter, and most of the children don't get it, I'm going to have to go back and I'm going to have to reteach. But if I do that first teach really well, I'm not going to have to come back and do so much reteaching.
So there is so much in APS, so much remediation. I mean, they even say students going to the University of New Mexico on the Legislative Scholarship Program, kind of a free ride that we're giving students, aren't prepared to go to college. They need remediation classes. What is the problem?
And I think part of the problem, honestly, is that we have a lot of students coming from other countries, and we know that, and they get to high school, and teachers, and I've been told this by high school teachers, they'll say, well, you were an elementary teacher, you know how to teach reading, right? So, but in high school, they teach the subject. And so they don't know how to teach reading.
Because they expect the student to already know.
They should have already known, but when you're thinking about a lot of those children that are coming in, and we have a significant number, if you kind of look at even the population of refugees, they're mostly coming into, the big city. And so when you're talking about those children and they're coming in, have been in refugee camps, have not been in any kind of formal school, and then you're putting them into high school with teachers that know how to teach history really well or algebra really well, but those children don't know how to, they don't know how to read. The other thing I see is when we're talking about standardized testing, We have to test because the only thing that schools produce is an educated child. But when we're talking about, I was listening to a child yesterday at a civics bee, and his project was all about basically teaching. And one of the things he says is, why are you asking us, and I found this fascinating, he said, why are you giving us a standardized test that is measuring, it's measuring what we don't know? Why don't you measure what we do know? And I never thought about that.
We're measuring what they don't know.
Rather than what they do know.
I thought we were measuring what they did know.
And he said we're not coming from a student's perspective. And so
well, they haven't learned it then, I guess.
They haven't learned it for whatever, for whatever reason. I don't know that that's really so possible, because when we're looking at, a first grade at one school in, Hatch, and a school here in Albuquerque, what the standards are for first grade have to be taught to all first graders.
Yeah.
That comes from PED.
What would you, as Lieutenant Governor, recommend to the governor, to the legislature, to PED, Public Education Department, to do to change and improve education?
I mean, one of the things that we have to do, and I know that every time we get a new administration in, they change the standardized assessment. So then, so we had PARC, everybody kind of remembers PARC, and then that got changed as a new administration came in. Well, how do we really know how the children are really doing when we go and we change a test? Like, we don't know. The thing that I would do as a teacher, this is what I did. You have to measure growth. You have to measure growth. So what I did as a kindergarten teacher is, at the beginning of the school year, I would give my children a test that I would make up, because teachers know what they're teaching at that moment. So teacher-made tests are really important. And then I would give the same test, then I would get an idea, where are the children? In August, when I would test them, they wouldn't know most of the stuff I was testing them, because that's what I'm supposed to be teaching them that year. Then in January, I'd give them the exact same test, because I would see, okay, this is what I've taught them, where are they? Am I seeing growth? If not, I need to change what I'm doing as a teacher. And then I would give the exact same test at the end of the year.
Are we not doing this now, Peggy?
No, we have a
Aragon?
standardized test that's given in April. So it's given at the end of the year. How is that helpful to the teachers in the classroom? Because next year they have a whole other group of children. So by the time they get the scores back, it's not going to help them to know, what did I not teach those
So
children
they don't
that year?
test at the beginning of the year?
They do have formative assessments that they're doing, but the summative assessment is the one that, is the one that really supposedly counts. So that one doesn't make any sense to me, because most teachers, as you know, you have chapter tests, right? End of unit tests. I mean, that's what you do during the year, but here everything's dependent on that one test, and that's all we really look at.
So you would suggest that we have the testing in the beginning of the year?
I
the
would.
Midpoint, and
I would.
again, I guess I thought we were doing that.
And I think the other thing is that we don't give the teachers those scores, so how can they get better? How do they know what they're missing with that class? It's going to go, those scores will go to the teacher the following year, but then they're all new standards. So if you were teaching 4th grade and then you get your, the scores when you're a 5th grade teacher, you have totally different standards that you have to teach. So it's not helpful. And how to get those scores quicker is a question, and that's something that I think that could be solved. How do we get those to those teachers sooner? And would it be better to look at testing them in January, maybe?
Is this something you came up with, Peggy, as a teacher, or something that you've heard from other teachers as a member of the Albuquerque Public School Board of Education?
As it concerns just
the testing.
As it concerns testing.
Yeah.
I mean, most teachers believe in their tests. They truly do. They know what they're doing. They are professionals.
Yeah.
They know what needs to be tested. And I think if they would kind of figure out a way how to use that summative test at the end of the year, the formative test that they give during the year, and then the teacher-made test, and put that all together, I think it would give us the real picture instead of the snapshot that day. What if you're not having a good day that day? And we all have those kind of days. But the teacher saw, I would say, I saw how the children were doing during the school year. the tests that I may have created, by my unit test and chapter tests. Somehow that should all be put together, and it shouldn't just be based on one test.
Peggy Aragon is running for Lieutenant Governor. You've been on the campaign trail throughout the state of New Mexico. What are you telling the voters out there? Or what are they telling you?
What are they telling me? Well, they're obviously worried about their jobs. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about education. They're worried that schools may, they're worried that what if they're going to close down again. Those are things that they're concerned about. And I don't blame them, because we don't know what's going to happen. They want to have a say in what's going on as it concerns school. We elect our state representatives and our state senators to represent us. Yet, with a public health order, that isn't what was happening. And so, one of the things that I think is really important to do is take that power. One person should not have unfettered power, and we elected our local legislators to represent us, and that is not what has happened, and that's wrong, because we are a representative government, and it is about we the people. It isn't about one person making those decisions, and I think that needs to be solved with a new governor coming in, that they would take that power away and say you can do an emergency and pick a number. I don't know what the magic number would be, that you can declare a public health emergency, right, and have that order. And if you say it's for 30 days, and I don't know what the number is. But then after that, the legislature should be called back in if they're going to extend it any time. They should be the ones that decide, because they speak for us.
That's how it's supposed to be, right?
That's
we
what
elect
it
them,
should be.
And that's how it's supposed to be. Peggy Aragon, running for Lieutenant Governor of the state of New Mexico. Thank you so much for being part of this program. And if they want more information, how do they find it about you, Peggy?
Well, you can go to Peggy fornm.com, and you can find anything about me right there. And you can also give me a call, and I'm happy to give my number, because thousands of parents have it already. So that's an easy one. It is 505-907-1133, and I'm here just to listen to all of you and help you in any way that I possibly can.
Okay. Thank you for your public service as a school teacher here in New Mexico, and also as a APS board member. Thank you so much, and congratulations for running for Lieutenant Governor.
Well, it's my honor to serve. It's what I was raised. It was how I was raised, and I know that my mom and dad did a really good job. That's what they did. They were out there just helping the public.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you for watching this program. I'm Diane. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
In the Army National Guard, family means everything.
Our parents, they were really supportive that all 5 of us would join. I got my education because of the Guard. I got to travel a little bit and experience a whole different culture. It helped me get my job, it helped me pay for my house. Being part-time really helped, because I could have some opportunities that were still in education.
Serving part-time in the Army National Guard instills pride that you and your family will share. Visit NationalGuard.com to learn more about part-time service.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinnewater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program or to purchase a copy of any Issues and Answers program, visit sunbroadcasting.org or call us at 505-345-1991.